Why you must read, beginner level. Why do I need to read in English? My students often ask me this. They think, I go to classes, I do my homework, I watch films in English. Why should I read books? Actually, reading is the best way to improve your English. I will tell you why. First, reading is very important now. In 2006, only 1 in 100 people went to university. Now, 7 in 100 people go to university. All jobs need more reading and writing than 100 years ago. This is true for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're an office worker or a mechanic. Second, reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar better than any other way. It won't improve your listening, but it will improve your vocabulary. And when you have a better vocabulary, you can listen more easily and improve your listening that way. In school, you probably read lots of English. You probably read boring textbooks and stories with exercises at the end. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about reading for pleasure. That means reading a book you enjoy because you enjoy it. You are not reading because your teacher said, "Read this book." You are not reading because you think, "I should read this book." You are reading because you want to. In 1965, they did an experiment in schools in America. These schools were for boys who had done crimes. For example, some of them stole things. They gave some of the boys free books. They were fun books, like James Bond. They said, "You can do what you want. You don't have to read the books." But the boys did read the books. They read a lot of books. Some boys read a book every 2 days. After 2 years, they gave the students a test. The students who got the books got better at reading and writing, and they liked school more. The students who did not get the books did not get better at reading and writing. Actually, some of them got worse. This isn't just true for native speakers. They also did an experiment on students learning English in the Fiji Islands. They used 3 ways to teach. The first way was normal English teaching. They did grammar classes, exercises, and so on. The second way was reading in silence. The students read books in class. The third way was reading together. The teacher read books to the students. After 1 year, the 2 ways with reading were the best. They were much better than the students who did normal English classes. They did the experiment again in Singapore. There, the students who read in silence did very well. They did the best in grammar tests. Other students did grammar classes, but they did worse in grammar tests. In normal classes, we try to remember grammar and vocabulary. When we read, we learn them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, when I read in English, it's too hard. I have to use the dictionary all the time. It's boring. I can't do it. I understand. So I wrote this book. I think this book will make you like reading because the stories are easy and fun. The early stories are short and easy, and the later stories are longer and harder. When you finish the book, you will think, wow, I did it. I make a podcast called Learn English with Listening. 9 of the stories in this book I wrote for Learn English with Listening. One of the stories I wrote for this book. But when I made this book, I made the stories better. Now you can read the stories at beginner, pre-intermediate, intermediate, or advanced levels. The stories are all fairy tales. Some are very popular fairy tales, but some are not so popular. One of them I wrote myself. Maybe you're thinking, fairy tales. Fairy tales are for children. I need useful vocabulary. I need to learn about business and science. That can't be fun. Actually, the vocabulary in these stories will be useful. McQuillan did an experiment where he looked at vocabulary in 22 novels. 85% of the words were on academic word lists. These are lists of words that you need to know to study at university. Rolls and Rogers also did an experiment. They said, if students read 1,000,000 words of science fiction, will they learn important science words for studying at university? The answer was yes. So yes, fairy tales are useful for you too. But I understand if you still don't believe me. When I learned about all this, I found it hard to believe too. But I like to try new things, and I love learning languages. So in 2017, I decided to do an experiment. I had wanted to learn Spanish for a long time, but I didn't learn much in normal classes. I said, I will read 1,000,000 words in Spanish. Afterwards, I will see what my level is. 1,000,000 words is about 20 novels, so it was a lot of work. I started with very easy reading, like this book. Then I started reading translations of books that I knew in English. For example, I have read Harry Potter and Game of Thrones in English, so I read them in Spanish too. Finally, I read new books in Spanish. I read Latin American authors, that means writers, such as Isabel Allende, Luis Jorge Borges, and Manuel Puig. I loved them. I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and added the words to my goal. After I finished reading 1,000,000 words, I wrote and talked to native speakers. I was at an intermediate level. I could understand almost everything I read. I could understand people when they spoke clearly, and I could have conversations. And I had spent most my time reading, not speaking. In 1 year, I learned more than most students learn in 5 years. I didn't try to remember grammar and vocabulary. I learned them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, I don't believe this. Or maybe you're thinking, wow, I'm going to read for hours every day. But I have to say something very important. You must read books that are easy. You must read books that are fun. If a book is too difficult or too boring, put it down and find another one. Stephen Krashen, an expert in language teaching, says, "Only read things in English that are fun and interesting. Read things that are really easy, that you wouldn't read in your native language because they are too easy." So you can read comics, magazines, detective stories, romance stories, and so on. Don't feel bad about reading translations. If you read very easy books, when you see a word you don't know, you will understand the meaning easily. You won't have to use a dictionary. So what is easy? Experiments show that you should understand at least 98% of the words in a text. %, that's so high. I know. But let me show you an example. Here is a text where 10% of the words are not real words. So you should understand 90% of the words. Jerry flurged out of bed and opened the curtains. He bimped to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and put butter on his poffer. Someone called his phone and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was torngling, so his Vinky fell on the floor. Is that easy to understand? Could you read a whole book of that? Here is the same text, but only 2% of the words are not real. So you should understand 98% of the words. Jerry jumped out of bed and opened the curtains. He sang to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and put butter on his toast. Someone called his phone, and he picked it up. He was very surprised by who was calling, so his Vinky fell on the floor. How was that? You probably didn't understand everything, but it was more fun to read than the first text. That's why reading for pleasure is so great. Maybe you don't understand everything, but you understand enough to follow the story, and you don't have to pick up a dictionary. So if you find that this book is too hard, read something easier. If you find it boring, read something more fun. I know that not everyone likes my writing, and that's okay. Find a book that is good for you. When we have fun, we learn much more. Because I want this book to be fun, it has no exercises in it. I thought about adding them after each story, but I don't think it's a good way to spend your time. Instead, you should read more. Read for pleasure. If you finish this book, you can try the level above. Because you already read the stories, you will know them well, and it will be easier to understand. But maybe when you finish this book, you will love stories. I hope so. If you do want to read more, you can listen to my podcast, Learn English with Listening. I write a new story every week with audio and text, and there are over 100 episodes for you to listen to. Happy reading and happy learning. Why you must read. Intermediate level. Why do I need to read in English? I get this question a lot from students. They argue that as long as they're going to classes, doing their homework and watching films in English, there's no need to sit down with something as boring and old-fashioned as a book. Well, To put it simply, they're wrong. In fact, reading is the best thing you can do to learn English, and I'm here to tell you why. Firstly, reading skills are more important than ever, whether that be in English or your native language. In 2006, only 1 in 100 people went to university. Now it's 7 in 100. All jobs, from office workers to mechanics, require far more reading and writing than a century ago. The competition is higher, and readers win. Secondly, reading is the best way to improve proficiency in English overall. Yes, you heard me right. Reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar far more efficiently than any other method. It won't improve your listening skills, but it will give you the vocabulary necessary to train your ear quickly. But it's not just any reading we're talking about. In school, you probably read lots in English. Boring textbooks and stories with exercises at the end. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about reading for pleasure. That means reading a book because you enjoy it. Not because your teacher told you to. Not because it's what you're supposed to read to improve your English. No questions. No book reports, just pure pleasure. Yeah, right, you're probably thinking. That's too good to be true. Let me show you. In 1965, an experiment was carried out in juvenile delinquent reform centers in America. One group of the students were given free books. They made sure they were exciting books that would appeal to young boys, such as James Bond. But unlike most reading programs, they were not required to read the books. They were simply given them. They could throw the books away, give them back, or draw on the pages, and nobody would punish them for it. But the boys did read them. They read a lot of them. Some of them read a book every 2 days. At the end of 2 years, they tested the students. Not only did their reading and writing greatly improve, so did their attitude towards school. But the students who were not on this program stayed the same. In fact, some of them got worse over the 2 years. This isn't just for native speakers either. A study of English as a second language, ESL students in the Fiji Islands looked at 3 methods: traditional English teaching, sustained silent reading, which means reading in silence for a long time, and a more conventional reading program, where the teachers read aloud to the students. By the end of the first year, students taught with the 2 reading methods had a 15-month advantage in English ability compared to the 6.5 months of the traditional method. When the study was replicated in Singapore, the students who did only sustained silent reading did better on grammar tests than the students who had taken only grammar classes. When we do grammar exercises, we try to memorize the rules of the language. When we read, we absorb them. But I know what you're thinking. That's all well and good, but when I pick up a book in English, it's too hard for me. I get bored of looking up words, and I give up after a few minutes. That's why I wrote this book. It is designed to make you fall in love with reading by providing fun, familiar stories that are easy to understand. The stories gradually increase in difficulty and length so that you can feel a sense of progression and success at the end. Most of them were originally released on my podcast, Learn English with Listening, but they have been rewritten and improved for this book, as well as having a version for each language level. They are a mix of classic and less popular fairy tales, as well as one that I wrote myself. Again, I know what you're thinking. Fairy tales? But those are for kids. I need useful vocabulary about business and science and technology. There's no way to make that fun. The thing with language is, there isn't such a big difference between important language and fun language. We use a wide range of words when talking about technical topics, as well as chatting with our friends. A study by McQuillan examined vocabulary in 22 novels and found that they included 85% of words on academic word lists. Rolls and Rogers found that if a student read 1,000,000 words of science fiction, they would acquire many of the technical words required for a science degree. So yes, reading fairy tales will help your English in all areas, even for academic purposes. As an English teacher, I've seen many times that the students who do the best are those who read the most. For IELTS, for university, for business, or just for travel, reading is the factor that predicts success. But I understand if you're still unsure. When I learned about all this, I was too. But I like to experiment, and I have a passion for learning languages. So, in 2017, I decided to test this theory. I had wanted to learn Spanish for a long time, but aside from struggling with Duolingo and not really learning anything, I hadn't made a serious attempt. I set myself a goal. I would read 1,000,000 words in Spanish and see what my level was afterwards. 1,000,000 words is roughly 20 standard-length novels, so it was a huge task. I started with very easy resources, like transcripts of podcasts for learners, but I avoided anything that felt too much like work. Once I'd learned the basics, I started reading translations of books that I knew in English, such as Harry Potter and A Song of Ice and Fire. You might know it as Game of Thrones. Finally, I was ready to move on to completely new books, and I fell in love with Latin American authors, such as Isabel Allende, Luis Jorge Borges, and Manuel Puig. With the reading, I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and counted the words as part of my reading. After I achieved my goal, I tested myself by writing and talking to native speakers and found I was at a decent intermediate level. I could understand almost everything I read, understand clear speech, and have conversations at a comfortable level, even though I had barely spoken the language since I started learning. I had been learning for about a year, and I had made more progress than most students make in 5 years. I didn't memorize the vocabulary and grammar rules. I absorbed them. By this point, you're either thinking, this is all complete nonsense, or you're super excited, ready to start reading for hours a day. But the next thing I'm going to say is extremely important. You must read books that are easy. You must read books that are fun. If a book is too difficult or too boring, put it down and find another one. Stephen Krashen, an expert in the field of second language acquisition, says, read only material in the second language that is genuinely fun and interesting. Material that is so easy that you probably feel guilty reading it in your primary language. This is your excuse to read comics, magazines, detective stories, romances, etc. There is no shame in reading translations. Ideally, you want to be reading a book so easy that when you see a word you don't know, you can understand the meaning from context. Research has shown that in order for this to happen, the text needs to be at least 98% known words. Gusipal Piocento? That's so high. I know, dear reader, but let me show you an example. Here's a text where I've replaced 10% of the words with nonsense words. That is, it's 90% comprehensible. Jerry flurged out of bed and threw open the curtains. It was a beautiful day. He bimped to himself as he did his daily routine, pouring coffee and buttering poffer. But then his phone rang, and the person torngling was so unexpected that he dropped his Vinky on the floor. Is that easy to understand? Could you read a whole book of that? Here's the same text, but 98% comprehensible. Jerry jumped out of bed and threw open the curtains. It was a beautiful day. He sang to himself as he did his daily routine, pouring coffee and buttering toast. But then his phone rang, and the person calling was so unexpected that he dropped his Vinky on the floor. How was that? Even if you couldn't understand everything, I bet it was far more enjoyable to read than the first text. And that's the magic of reading for pleasure. Even if you didn't understand everything, you got enough to follow the story and keep going without having to pick up a dictionary. So if you find that this book is too hard, put it down and read the level below. If you find it boring, go read something else. Yes, I'm giving you permission to stop reading my book. I know not everyone likes my writing style, and that's okay. Find what works for you. As you read, focus on the meaning of the stories, and don't sweat it if you don't understand every single word. Just relax and try to get lost in the pages. Believe it or not, when we have fun, we learn far better. The levels of these volumes are based on the Common European Framework of Reference, a system for defining language levels. You'll know them as A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2, although these books only cover A2 to C1. If you're a 1 level, you probably need more guided teaching before you start reading, and if you're C2 level, then you can start reading books for native speakers. A great strategy. If you don't feel so confident about your reading ability, is to start with the beginner level of the book and reread it level by level, going all the way up to advanced. This will allow you to really absorb the new language and gradually increase the difficulty. There is not a huge difference between the intermediate level stories and the advanced level stories, but even rereading the same story twice can be very effective. We need to repeatedly encounter new words and phrases before our brain can really understand them. Finally, this book has no exercises in it. I considered adding them after each story, but it would contradict everything I just told you. The most effective way to spend your time is reading for pleasure, and exercises distract from that. If, however, you finish this book and find yourself wanting more stories, do go and listen to my podcast, Learn English with Listening. I publish a new story every week with audio and text, and there are over 100 episodes for you to listen through. Happy reading and happy learning.
Welcome to Learn English with Listening. I'm Liba, here to help you get better at English. Today's episode is all about why reading is so important. We'll tell the same story in two different levels, easy and a bit harder. Today's show is for people who are just starting to learn English and those who are getting better. We'll tell the same story twice, once for beginners and once for those in the middle. It's called Why Reading is So Important. Beginner level. Why do you need to read in English? Generally, my students often ask me this. They think they go to classes, do homework, watch films in English, so why should they read books? Actually, reading is the best way to improve your English. I will tell you why. At first, reading is very important. Now, in 2024, more than 10 in 100 people went to university. All jobs need more reading and writing than 100 years ago. This is true for every single person. It doesn't matter if you're an office worker or a mechanic. Second, reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar better than any other way. It won't improve your listening, but it will improve your vocabulary. When you have a better vocabulary, you can listen more easily and improve your listening that way. In school, you likely read a bunch of English stuff. Remember those dull textbooks and stories with questions at the end? But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about reading for pleasure. When you read a book just because you like it, that's pleasure reading. You're not doing it because a teacher told you to or because you feel like you should. You're doing it because you really want to. In 1965, some schools in America tried an experiment. These schools were for boys who had done bad things like stealing. They gave some of the boys free books. These books were breathtaking, like James Bond stories. The teacher said, "You don't have to read these books if you don't want to." But guess what? The boys did read the books. They read a whole bunch of them. Some boys finished a book every 2 days. After 2 years, the teachers gave all the students a test. The students who got the free books got better at reading and writing, and they enjoyed school more. But the students who didn't get the books didn't improve much in reading and writing. Some of them even got worse. This isn't just true for native speakers. They tried something similar with students in Fiji. They used 3 methods to teach. First, the usual way with grammar classes and exercises. Second, reading quietly in class. Third, reading aloud together with the teacher. After a year, the 2 reading methods were the most successful. They were much better than the students who did normal English classes. They tried the experiment again in Singapore. There, the students who read silently did really well. They scored the highest in grammar tests. The other students had grammar classes, but they didn't do as well in the tests. In normal classes, we try to remember grammar and vocabulary. When we read, we learn them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, when I read in English, it's too hard. I have to use the dictionary all the time. It's boring. I can't do it. I understand this, and that's why I wrote this book. I think this book will make you like reading because the stories are easy and fun. The early stories are short and easy, and the later stories are longer and harder. When you finish the book, you might think, "Wow, I did it." I make daily English audio podcasts on this YouTube channel called Learn English with Listening. And of course, the stories are easy to learn. Now you can read the stories at beginner, pre-intermediate, intermediate, or advanced level. The stories are all fairy tales. Some are very popular fairy tales, but some are not so popular. Maybe you are thinking, fairy tales? Oh, fairy tales are for children. I need useful vocabulary and need to learn about business and science. That can't be fun. Guess what? The vocabulary in these stories can be really helpful. John checked out words in a few stories. It turns out 85% of those words are on lists of important words, words for university studies. James and Roberts tried something similar. They wondered, if students read a million words of science fiction, will they learn important science words for university? And you know what the answer was? Yes. So, yes, fairy tales are useful for you too. But I understand if you still don't believe me. When I learned about all this, I found it hard to believe too. But I like to try new things, and I love learning languages. So in 2019, I decided to do an experiment. I had wanted to learn French for a long time, but I didn't learn much in normal classes. I said, I will read a million words in French. Afterwards, I will see what my level is. A million words is about 20 novels. So it was a lot of work. I started with very easy reading, like our stories. Then I started reading translations of books that I knew in English. For example, I have read The Mystery Girl and A Beautiful Wife in English, so I read them in French too. Finally, I read new books in French. I love them. I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and added the words to my goal. After I read a lot, talked to native speakers, and practiced, I got pretty good. I could understand most of what I read, could follow clear speech, and could chat with people. I spent more time reading than speaking. In 1 year, I learned a lot more than most students learn in 5 years. I didn't try to memorize grammar or words. I just picked them up and learned them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, I don't believe this. Or maybe you're thinking, wow, I'm going to read for hours every day. But I have to say something very important. You must read books that are easy. You must read books that are enjoyable. For this, subscribe to our channel. Stephen Krashen, an expert in language teaching, says, only read things in English that are fun and interesting. Read things that are really easy that you wouldn't read in your native language because they are too easy. So you can read comics, magazines, detective stories, romance stories, and so on. Don't feel bad about reading translations. When you read really simple books, if there's a word you don't know, it's easy to figure out what it means without needing a dictionary. So, what counts as easy? Studies suggest you should be able to understand at least 98% of the words in a text. 98%. That's a lot. Yes, it is. Let me give you an example. Imagine a text where 10% of the words aren't real. That means you only understand 90% of the words. Jerry sprang out of bed and opened the curtains. He hummed to himself as he made breakfast. He brewed coffee and spread butter on his toast. Someone called his phone, and he answered it. He was very startled by who was Tling, so his cup slipped from his hand and fell on the floor. Is that easy to understand? Could you read a whole book of that? Here's the same text, but only 2% of the words are not real. So you should understand 98% of the words. Jerry hopped out of bed and opened the curtains. He sang to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and put butter on his toast. Someone called his phone, and he answered it. He was very surprised by who was calling, so his cup slipped from his hand and fell on the floor. How was that? You probably didn't understand everything, but it was more fun to read than the first text. That's why reading for pleasure is so great. Maybe you don't understand everything, but you understand enough to follow the story, and you don't have to pick up a dictionary. So read for pleasure, because you already read a story. You will know them well, and it will be easier to understand. Happy reading and happy learning. Intermediate level. Many students often ask me this question: why should I bother reading books when I'm already attending classes, doing homework, and watching English films? Well, to put it simply, they're mistaken. Actually, reading is the best thing you can do to learn English, and I'm here to explain why. Firstly, being able to read well is really crucial now, whether it's in English or your own language. In 2024, only 10 out of 100 people went to university. Nowadays, all kinds of jobs, like office jobs or working with machines, need you to read and write much more than they did 100 years ago. There are more people competing for jobs now, and the ones who are good at reading have an advantage. Next, reading is the top way to get better at English in general. Yes, that's correct. Reading helps you with speaking, writing, learning new words, and grammar much better than anything else. It might not directly help with listening, but it gives you the words you need to understand spoken English faster. But it's not just any reading we're talking about. In school, you probably read lots in English, boring textbooks, and stories with exercises at the end. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about reading for pleasure. That means reading a book because you enjoy it, not because your teacher told you to, not because it's what you're supposed to read to improve your English. No questions, no book reports, just pure pleasure. Yeah, right. You're probably thinking that's too good to be true. Let me show you. In 1965, there was a test done in places where troubled young people were helped, called reform centers in America. One group of the students got books for free. These books were fun ones, like James Bond, that would interest boys their age. But unlike most reading plans, they didn't have to read the books if they didn't want to. They could throw them away, give them back, or even draw on the pages, and nobody would get mad at them. But the boys did read them, read a lot of them. Some of them read a book every 2 days. At the end of 2 years, they tested the students. Not only did their reading and writing greatly improve, so did their attitude toward school. But the students who were not on this program stayed the same. In fact, some of them got worse over the 2 years. This isn't just for native speakers either. A study of English as a second language students in the Fiji Islands looked at 3 methods: traditional English teaching, sustained silent reading, which means reading in silence for a long time, and a more conventional reading program where the teachers read aloud to the students. At the end of the first year, students who were taught using 2 different reading methods showed a 15-month improvement in their English skills, while those taught with the traditional method only improved by 6.5 months. In a similar study conducted in Singapore, students who practiced sustained silent reading performed better in grammar tests compared to those who only attended grammar classes. This suggests that while doing grammar exercises helps us memorize language rules, reading allows us to naturally absorb them. But I know what you're thinking. That's all well and good. But when I pick up a book in English, it's too hard for me. I get bored of looking up words, and I give up after a few minutes. That's why I wrote this book. It is designed to make you fall in love with reading by providing fun, familiar stories that are easy to understand. The stories are all fairy tales. Some are very popular fairy tales, but some are not so popular. Again, I know what you're thinking. Fairy tales, but those are for kids. I need useful vocabulary about business, science, and technology. There's no way to make that fun. Guess what? The vocabulary in these stories can be really helpful. John checked out words in a few stories. Turns out 85% of those words are on lists of important words for university studies. James and Roberts tried something similar. They wondered, if students read 1 million words of science fiction, will they learn important science words for university? And you know what the answer was? Yes! So, yes, reading fairy tales will help your English in all areas, even for academic purposes. As an English teacher, I've seen many times that the students who do the best are those who read the most. For IELTS, for university, for business, or just for travel, reading is the factor that predicts success. But I understand if you're still unsure. When I learned about all this, I was too. But I like to experiment, and I have a passion for learning languages. So in 2019, I decided to do an experiment. I had wanted to learn French for a long time, but I didn't learn much in normal classes. I said, I will read 1,000,000 words in French. Afterwards, I will see what my level is. 1,000,000 words is about 20 novels. So it was a lot of work. I started with very easy reading, like our stories. Then I started reading translations of books that I knew in English. For example, I have read The Mystery Girl and A Beautiful Wife in English, so I read them in French too. Finally, I read new books in French. I loved them. I also listened to podcasts, but I always read the transcripts and added the words to my goal. After I achieved my goal, I tested myself by writing and talking to native speakers and found I was at a decent intermediate level. I could understand almost everything I read, understand clear speech, and have conversations at a comfortable level. Even though I had barely spoken the language since I started learning, I had been learning for about a year, and I had made more progress than most students make in 5 years. I didn't memorize the vocabulary and grammar rules, I absorbed them. By this point, you're either thinking this is all complete nonsense, or you're super excited, ready to start reading for hours a day. But the next thing I'm going to say is extremely important. You must read books that are easy. You must read books that are fun. If a book is too difficult or too boring, put it down and find another one. Stephen Krashen, an expert in the field of second language acquisition, says, read only material in the second language that is genuinely fun and interesting. Material that is so easy that you probably feel guilty reading it in your primary language. This is your excuse to read comics, magazines, detective stories, romances, etc. There is no shame in reading translations. Ideally, you want to be reading a book so easy that when you see a word you don't know, you can understand the meaning from context. Research has shown that in order for this to happen, the text needs to be at least 98% known words. 98%. That's so high. I know, dear reader. But let me show you an example. Here's a text where I've replaced 10% of the words with nonsense words. That is, it's 90% comprehensible. Jerry flirted out of bed and threw open the curtains. It was a beautiful day. He bummed to himself as he did his daily routine, pouring coffee and buttering puffer. But then his phone rang, and the person tling was so unexpected that he dropped his Vinky on the floor. Is that easy to understand? Could you read a whole book of that? Here's the same text, but 98% comprehensible. Jerry jumped out of bed and threw open the curtains. It was a beautiful day. He sang to himself as he did his daily routine, pouring coffee and buttering toast. But then his phone rang, and the person calling was so unexpected that he dropped his Vinky on the floor. Did you like that? Even if you didn't understand everything, I'm sure it was much more fun to read than the first text. That's the amazing thing about reading for enjoyment. Even if you didn't get everything, you understood enough to follow the story and keep reading without needing a dictionary. So read for pleasure. Because you already read a story, you will know them well, and it will be easier to understand. As you read, focus on understanding the stories. And don't worry if you don't know every word. Just relax and enjoy getting lost in the pages. Believe it or not, we learn better when we have fun. These books are divided into levels based on the Common European Framework of Reference, which uses levels like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. However, these books only cover levels A2 to C1. If you're at level A1, you might need more structured teaching before you start reading these books. If you're at level C2, you can start reading books written for native speakers.
Hi, everyone. I am very happy you are here with me today. Today, we are going to learn English in a fun and powerful way. Are you ready to speak English with more confidence and joy? Let us begin with a real story and the shadowing method. Do you know the shadowing method? It is very simple. First, you listen to me. Then you repeat after me. You copy my voice, my words, and my tone, just like a shadow. That is why we call it shadowing. This method is easy, but it works very well. It can help your English grow faster. Now, let me tell you my story. My name is Ariel. I am 24 years old. I live in a small town. I started learning English 1 year ago. At first, I did not know many words. I could not speak. I could not understand fast English. I felt shy. I felt slow. I tried reading books. I tried grammar lessons. But I still felt stuck. One day, I saw a video. The teacher said, "Shadow me. Speak with me. Learn with me." I was curious. I wanted to try. I listened to the teacher. He spoke slowly and clearly. I liked his voice. I liked his energy. I listened again. Then I said the same words. I copied the way he spoke. I tried to match his voice. I did this again and again. It was fun. It felt new. It felt strong. I said, yes, this is good for me. So I started doing shadowing every day. In the morning, I listened to Easy English. I played one small story. I paused after each sentence. I repeated it. I tried to sound like the speaker. At first, I made mistakes. I laughed at myself, but I did not stop. I tried again. I did it slowly. I did it with feeling. My tongue felt heavy. My mouth felt tired, but my heart was happy. I was learning something real. I was learning to speak. After 2 weeks, I felt a change. My mouth was moving faster. My words were more clear. I could say simple things without fear. I said, "Good morning," with a smile. I said, "How are you?" to my neighbor. I felt strong inside. Shadowing helped me feel free. I kept going. Every day I picked a new video. I chose easy stories. I liked stories about daily life. I listened to one sentence. I repeated it. I listened again. I repeated again. I copied the sound. I copied the feeling. I did not just say the words. I lived the words. I felt the story. Sometimes I stood in front of a mirror. I looked at my face. I looked at my mouth. I spoke with power. I said, "I can do this." I said, "I am learning English." One day I was in the market. A tourist came to me. He said, "Excuse me, do you know this place?" I smiled. I said, "Yes, I do. Walk straight and turn left." He said, "Thank you." I said, "You are welcome." I felt proud. That was my first real conversation in English. It was short, but it was real. I went home and wrote about it. I said to myself, shadowing works. I did not stop. I kept going. I made a small rule, just 10 minutes a day. That was my promise. Every morning after I woke up, I listened to one story. I spoke with it. I played it again. I repeated again. I used my hands. I used my face. I acted like I was the person in the story. I became the voice. I became the emotion. It was not just speaking. It was like singing. It was like dancing with words. After 1 month, my voice was louder. My words were smoother. I did not feel shy. I did not feel stuck. I started enjoying my practice. One day, I found a story about a girl who goes to the beach. I loved that story. The girl spoke about the sea. She spoke about the sky. I shadowed her voice. I felt like I was there. I felt the sea. I felt the joy. I listened to that story many times. I shadowed it every day for 1 week. That story became my friend. When I felt sad, I played it. When I felt slow, I played it. It gave me light. It gave me strength. After some time, I wanted to shadow with real people. So I searched online. I found a speaking group. They were kind. They were from many countries. We met once a week. We read short stories together. We listened. We shadowed. We laughed. It felt like family. I learned new accents. I learned new voices. I was not afraid. I spoke more. I smiled more. I shared my voice. One day, the group leader said, "Ariel, your English is clear and strong. How did you learn?" I said, "I use shadowing. I speak every day. I copy voices. I copy stories. It changed my life." Everyone was surprised. They wanted to try too. I felt happy. I felt proud. My shadowing practice helped not only me, but others too. I told them, just 10 minutes a day. Listen, repeat, enjoy. That became my message. Now my days had more meaning. My mornings had a purpose. I woke up, made tea, and opened my favorite English story. I listened to the speaker. I followed each word. I repeated with care. I did not worry about mistakes. I just enjoyed the sound. One day, I tried a story with fast English. It was hard. The voice was quick. My mouth could not catch the words. I stopped the video. I took a deep breath. I said, "It is okay. I will try again." I slowed it down. I repeated each line 5 times. My tongue moved fast. My brain felt tired. But I did not stop. I drank some water. I smiled. I kept going. I said, "This is good. This is growth." After some time, I could say the fast story without fear. I was proud again. My voice became clear. My confidence grew stronger. I started recording myself. I spoke with the story. Then I played my voice. I listened to my words. At first, I did not like my voice. It sounded strange. It sounded different. But I kept listening. I started to like my voice. I heard my progress. I heard my power. I made a new habit. Every Sunday, I recorded one short story. I shadowed it. Then I listened. I wrote my mistakes. I fixed them. I did this every week. I saw big changes. My family saw it too. My sister said, "You sound like a native." I laughed. I said, "Not yet, but thank you." One day, I went to a cafe. There were 2 tourists. They asked the waiter something. He did not understand. I stood up. I said, "Do you need help?" They said, "Yes, please." I helped them order food. We talked for a while. They were from Canada. They said, "Your English is very good." I felt so happy. I said, "Thank you. I practice every day." I told them about shadowing. They said, "That is a great method." That moment gave me hope. I said, "One day I will travel too. One day I will speak with many people." After that, I practiced even more. I started walking and shadowing. I put on my earphones. I played a podcast. I repeated each sentence. People looked at me, but I did not care. I was proud. I was learning. Sometimes I went to the park. I sat under a tree. I listened to slow English. I shadowed with the birds. I shadowed with the wind. It felt peaceful. It felt beautiful. I started to write my own stories. I wrote short stories about my day. I read them out loud. I recorded them. I shadowed my own voice. That felt special. I was not only learning, I was creating. My English had life. My English had color. I started helping my cousin. She was 10 years old. She wanted to learn English too. I gave her my old videos. I said, listen and repeat. She smiled. She said, like a shadow? I said, yes, like a shadow. We practiced together. We read fun stories. We used funny voices. We laughed a lot. It became our happy time. I saw her grow. I saw her smile. I felt proud again. My shadowing helped her too. After 6 months, I could talk to many people. I joined an English book club. We read easy books. We talked about them. I spoke without fear. I asked questions. I gave answers. My voice was strong. One member said, Ariel, your English is so smooth. What is your secret? I said, shadowing, just shadowing. They asked me to teach. I said yes. I started a small class. Every Saturday, I shared my method. I said, listen, repeat, copy the voice, feel the story, do it every day. The students liked it. They followed me. They thanked me. I felt so happy. I was not a teacher before, but now I was helping others. Shadowing gave me that gift. I made a small channel. I called it Speak with Ariel. I posted one video every week. I read a simple story. I spoke slowly. I asked people to repeat after me. Many people joined. They said, thank you, Ariel. We love your voice. We love your stories. I was surprised. I never thought I could do this, but I did. Because of shadowing. Because I did not stop. One day I got a message. A school in another city wanted me to speak. They saw my videos. They liked my method. They said, please come and teach shadowing to our students. I was nervous, but I said yes. I traveled by bus. I reached the school. The students were kind. The teachers were nice. I shared my story. I said, 1 year ago, I could not speak English. I was shy. I was scared, but shadowing helped me. Now I can speak. Now I can help you. The room was full of smiles. We did a shadowing session. We read a short story. We repeated together. The students laughed. They learned fast. I felt proud again. I came home. I sat on my bed. I closed my eyes. I thought, this is the power of small steps. This is the gift of daily practice.
Anna did not sleep all night. She was excited. Early in the morning, her father called her. Come on, Anna, it's time to get up. It's a long way to the station. Anna got dressed, and she was soon ready. She did not eat any breakfast. She was nervous. She was going to visit her aunt in Naira. She was going alone in a train for the first time. Anna and her father left the village and began to walk to the station. It was a long way. They reached the station at midday. Soon the train came. It was nearly empty. Anna got in. She was frightened. It was her first journey away from home. "Your aunt will meet you at Naira," her father said. "Be careful now, Anna. Don't talk to any strangers." The train started suddenly. Soon it was going fast. Anna watched her father. He looked smaller and smaller. Then he disappeared. The train journey was very long. Anna looked out of the window. The fields, trees, villages, and animals rushed past. After a long time, she began to feel sleepy. She was very tired. Slowly, she fell asleep. Later, Anna woke up. It was dark outside. She felt small and lost. She was a long way from her village and her father. There was a man in the carriage with her now. He had an ugly face, and he was very big and strong. His hair was very short. He looked bad and dangerous. The man smiled at Anna. "Hello," he said. "You're awake now, are you? Where are you going?" Anna remembered her father's words. She did not say anything. "Are you going to Polona?" asked the man. Anna was surprised. "No, to Naira," she said. "Naira," said the man. "But we passed Naira 2 hours ago. You were asleep." Anna wanted to cry. She sat very still. It was warm in the carriage, but Anna felt cold. "We've passed Naira?" she asked. "Yes," said the man. Anna thought of the journey back to Naira. How much did it cost? She did not have any money. She thought of her aunt at Naira station. "Don't worry," said the man. "I'll help you. What's your name?" "Anna," she said. "My name is Sam," said the man. "You can trust me, Anna." Anna looked at Sam again. He was very ugly. He had a long scar on his face and he looked dangerous. But he seemed kind. Was he good or bad? Anna did not know. The train began to slow down. Sam got up and looked out of the window. Anna saw a newspaper on Sam's seat. There was a photograph on the back page. It was Sam's photograph. Above the photograph was a headline: "This man is a dangerous fighter." Now Anna was sure. Sam was a bad man, and dangerous too. He was a criminal. Anna must be careful. She must get away from him, quickly. Sam left the window. "We're coming into Polona now," he said. "Stay with me. I'll help you." The train stopped. Anna jumped up and ran to the door. She wanted to run away. The door was very heavy. She could not open it. Sam was standing behind her. "I'll open it," he said. At the station exit, Anna was stopped. "Where is your ticket?" "This ticket is for Naira." "I fell asleep. I passed Naira. I haven't got any money." "I'll pay," said voice. It was Sam. "Thank you, sir. Come with me, Anne." Anna wanted to run away, but she was frightened of Sam. She was tired and lost. Polona was a big town. Anna did not know anybody there. Sam called a taxi. "Get in, Anna," he said. Anna got in. "The Boxer Hotel," Sam said to the driver. The taxi went a long way. The streets of Polona were wide and busy. There were lots of cars and shops and people. The taxi turned into a small, dark street and stopped. Sam got out and paid the taxi driver. Anna looked up and down the street. "Come on, Anna," said Sam. Anna could not run away. She was weak and slow. Sam was big and strong. She followed Sam into the hotel. There was a cafe inside the hotel. It did not look very clean. Two men were drinking and playing cards. They saw Sam. One of them said, "Hello, Sammy, come and have a drink. Who's the pretty girl?" Sam took off his coat and sat down. "Hello, Tino. Hello, Bubs," he said. "This is Anna. She's lost." The men looked at Anna and laughed. "Lost, is she?" said Tino. "Poor Anna. You're a lucky man, Sam. Have a drink." Sam gave Anna a chair. She sat down. She looked at the men. Tino had a mustache. Bubs did not have any front teeth. They looked tough. The men were drinking. Tino gave Anna a glass. "Come on, Anna," he said. "Drink some wine." Anna pushed the glass away. She thought, "I mustn't eat or drink anything. These men will give me a drug. Then I will fall asleep." Sam called the waiter. "Bring some dinner," he said. "Bring some good hot food." The waiter came with the food. Bubs put some of the food on a plate and gave it to Anna. It looked good and smelt delicious. Anna forgot about drugs and began to eat. She ate quickly and finished everything. She put her spoon down. The men were looking at her. They laughed. Anna was very frightened again. "Come on, Anna," said Sam. "You're tired. You must go to bed now." He took her arm. "Lock her door, Sam," said Tino. "There are bad men in Polona. You must keep her safe." Bubs laughed. "Good night, Anna," he said. Sam took Anna upstairs and into a bedroom. Her heart was beating fast. "Good night, Anna," said Sam. He smiled at her. "Don't worry, you are safe here." Anna did not say anything. Sam seemed kind, but she remembered the newspaper. Sam was dangerous, and his friends looked dangerous too. She must escape. Sam went out of the room and shut the door. He locked it and went downstairs. Anna sat on the bed and cried. Downstairs, the men drank and played cards. Anna heard their voices. They were laughing. After a long time, she fell asleep. Anna woke late. The sun was shining. She looked out of the window. The waiter was sitting outside in the street. He was smoking a cigarette and reading a newspaper. Anna looked round the room. It was dirty. There was some old paper on the floor. In one corner, there was a small table with some things on it. Anna had an idea. There was a biro on the table. She took the biro and picked up a piece of paper from the floor. She wrote, "Please help me. I want to go to Naira. My aunt is waiting for me there. I must escape. I have no money and no friends. Anna." She threw the note out of the window. The waiter picked it up. He read the note. He looked up and saw her. He smiled at her and went into the hotel. Anna heard voices outside her room. Somebody unlocked the door. The waiter came in. There was somebody on the stairs behind him. It's a policeman, thought Anna. He's brought a policeman. She ran forward. It was Sam. He was holding her note in his hand. "Good afternoon, Anna," said Sam. "You've slept very late. You must be hungry. Come and have some food. We're going soon." The waiter smiled at Sam. Anna understood. The waiter did not want to help her. He and Sam were friends. Anna went downstairs with Sam, and they gave her some food, but she was not hungry. She did not eat or drink anything. Sam went outside into the street. Anna heard voices. Sam was talking to a man. What were they planning? Sam came inside again. "Come on, Anna. We must go now," he said. A taxi was waiting outside. Anna and Sam got in. "Where are we going?" Anna asked. Sam looked at her. "Till take you to your aunt later," he said. "First, I have an important job to do." Sam smiled. The smile twisted his face. He looked very ugly. Soon the taxi stopped. Sam and Anna got out. They were outside a big building. There was a notice outside. Anna understood now. Sam was a boxer. Dangerous fighter meant good boxer. Sam was not a criminal. Anna followed Sam into the building. It was a very big hall. There were seats on all sides. In the middle was the boxing ring. Tino and Bubs were waiting for them. "Stay here, Anna," said Sam. "Tino and Bubs will look after you. I must go now." Tino and Bubs shook Sam's hand. "Good luck, Sam," said Bubs. "You'll win all right," said Tino. Anna smiled at Sam for the first time. "Good luck, Sam," she said. Tino and Bubs took Anna to a seat beside the ring. Tino sat on one side of her and Bubsoin the other. Anna sat quietly and waited. The two men talked excitedly. "Sam's gonna win," said Tino. "Of course he'll win," said Bubs. "He's the best fighter in the country." Anna listened. Sam was famous. "Everybody wants him to win," said Tino. "Everybody likes him." "That's right," said Bubs. "Sam's a great boxer, and he's a good man, too." "Wanna know a story about Sam?" said Tino. One night he was asleep in bed. He heard shouts in the street and he looked outside. A house was on fire. He ran outside. There was a child in the burning house. He went inside and saved the child. But he was badly hurt. His face was burned and he got a bad scar. "Poor Sam," said Bubs. "That's why he's so ugly." They both laughed. Anna was listening quietly. She now understood everything. She was safe with Sam. She felt sorry for him. "Is the fight going to start soon?" she asked Tino. "Yes, of course," said Tino. "It will start very soon." The hall was full of people now. Boys were selling cigarettes and sweets. Everybody was laughing and joking. The referee was waiting in the ring. The audience was excited now. "Sam! Sam! We want Sam!" they shouted. Sam climbed into the ring. He was wearing short trousers and big boxing gloves. He raised both hands in the air. The crowd was clapping. "Sam, Sam, Sam!" they shouted. The other fighter climbed into the ring. He was very big and strong. "Here comes Danny," said Tino. "He's a very good fighter." Anna was worried. "Don't you worry, Anna," said Bubs. "Sam's the best fighter in the country." The referee called the two boxers to the center of the ring. He spoke to them quietly for a few moments. Then Sam and Danny shook hands. The two fighters went back to their corners and waited. A bell rang, and the fight began. Danny was younger than Sam, but he was a good fighter. He moved fast. He tried to hit Sam, but Sam jumped away every time. Sam's arms were long. He moved very quickly. He hit Danny hard many times. Anna was very excited. Her hands held the seat tightly. It was a long fight. Sam moved quickly. He hit Danny often, but Danny did not fall down. Sam was getting tired. He was moving more slowly. Anna was worried. The crowd was shouting, "Yow, Sam, Sam!" Anna shouted, "Sam, Sam, come on, Sam, watch out!" Tino and Bubs were shouting too. Danny hit Sam's face hard. Blood came out of Sam's nose and one of his eyes was nearly closed. But Sam did not stop. He ran forward and hit Danny with all his strength. Danny fell over and lay still. The referee started to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Danny did not move. 5, 6, 7. Danny tried to get up. He could not. 8, 9, 10. Danny lay still. The fight was over. Sam was the winner. Anna was laughing and clapping. "Well done, Sam! Well done, Sam!" she shouted. Nobody heard her. Everybody was shouting, "Sam! We want Sam! We want Sam!" Tino and Bubs took Anna to the dressing room. Sam was resting. "Hello, Sam," said Anna. "You were great." Sam was surprised. "Hello, Anna," he said. "You're different now. You didn't talk to me before." "Team sorry, Sam," said Anna. "I was frightened." "I know," said Sam. "Team big and ugly, and you were frightened. But I'm not a criminal, Anna." "Team sorry, Sam," Anna said again. "I was wrong. I'm not frightened now." Sam was pleased. "Come on, Anna," he said. "We'll go to Naira now. Your aunt is waiting for you." Anna said goodbye to Tino and Bubs. She got into a taxi with Sam. It was a long way to Naira, and Anna asked Sam many questions. They talked and talked and talked. They reached Naira at night. It was dark. Sam knew Naira. He quickly found Anna's aunt's house. They knocked on the door. The door Anna's aunt was standing in the doorway. She was crying. "Oh, Anna, Anna," she said. "Thank God you are here at last." Then she saw Sam. He looked terrible. His face was cut and bruised after the fight. "Anna," she said, "who is this man?" "Auntie," Anna said. "Don't be angry. This is Sam. I fell asleep on the train. I passed Naira Station. Sam helped me. He took me to a hotel. He brought me to Naira in a taxi. Anna's aunt looked at Sam again. Wait a minute, she said. She ran inside. She came back with a newspaper. Sam's photograph was on the back page. Are you Sam the boxer? She asked. Yes, am, said Sam. Anna's aunt was pleased. Sam was famous. He was a great man. Everybody knew him. Come in, Sam, she said. Please sit down. Will you have some tea? Anna sat in the room with her aunt and Sam. She did not say anything. She felt very happy. Anna's aunt asked Sam many questions. She laughed a lot. She liked him. It was getting very late. I must go now, Anna, said Sam. Can I come and see you again? Yes, Sam, said Anna. She smiled at him. The end. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel Learn English with Listening. My name is Liba, and in this lesson, we are going to look at 15 ways to improve your listening skills. Let's get started. Okay, let's get to the lesson. 1. The first tip is to join a conversation group. Join a conversation group. So, when we think of joining a conversation group, we think about speaking, yeah? But also, we practice listening when we go to a conversation group. So it's not just about practicing your own speaking skills, but it's also about listening to the other people in the group and understanding what they're saying. So, picking up new vocabulary from them, listening to the ways that those people speak, and so on. So joining a conversation group can be a great way to practice building your own listening skills. Okay, next tip. 2. The next tip is to make yourself a study plan and establish a routine. Make yourself a study plan and establish a routine. So, this is a tip that's pretty basic, and you have to do this or you should do this no matter what skill you're working on improving. But within your study plan, make sure that you have something that's going to help you with your listening skills and you do it regularly. So that means inside your study plan, you have something to listen to. So you're not just reading textbooks, or you're not just looking at vocabulary words and flashcards. Make sure you also have something in your study plan that will help you to build your listening as well. 3. Okay. The next tip is to watch movies in the language you're studying, especially on devices you can use to repeat selected scenes. So this means if you are watching on your phone or on a computer, something that lets you rewind, you can use that as a tool for your studies. So when you listen to a scene, you can go back and listen to it again to check for new words or maybe something that you couldn't quite catch the first time around. So when you're listening to movies or maybe YouTube videos or even audio lessons, make sure to take the time to just go back and check something when you're not sure about it. This can be a great habit. 4. Okay, the next tip is to look for root words when listening to something. look for root words when listening to something. What does that mean? So, this means when you are listening to new words, try to think about the base word inside a word that you don't know. So let's think of an example. For example, if you hear the word comparable, you might think, what does that word mean? What is happening there? So, comparable is a word that's made up of the root compare, and it also has able at the end. Able is used to refer to something that we can do. So, comparable is like saying compare and something that we can do. So that means something that we can compare. So, when you hear a new word, try to think about the roots that you might be able to identify in a word. This does not work for every word, by any means, but if you hear a new word that's quite long, you might see if you can identify, if you can find some key root sounds within that word that can give you a hint about the meaning. The next tip is to use the shadowing technique. Use the shadowing technique. So yes, we talked about using shadowing to improve your speaking skills, but you can also use shadowing to improve your listening skill. This can be a great way to find gaps in your listening. So if you can't quite catch a vocabulary word, or you're not sure about the grammar that's used in a sentence, you can identify that when you're listening and try to check a script or check a textbook or something to identify those parts that you need to work on a little bit more. The next tip is to practice listening to dictations. Practice listening to dictations. So, dictation is a fancy word that means a person talking into a recorder for a long time about one topic. So, for many people, you might think, oh, dictation like that, like a specialist topic, or people with specialized knowledge do that. But you can also find some recordings online of people talking about specific topics that can be at your level. A great example of this is podcasts. So, think about a podcast topic or something that you might like to listen to one person talk about for a long time, and then do a quick search to see if you can find a podcast of that. It's basically one person talking for a long time about one topic, and this can be great for building your skills. Okay. On to the next tip. 7. Use the internet. It is full of listening resources. Use the internet. It is full of listening resources. Yes, of course. The internet is full of things for you to listen to. You can find movies and videos. You can find music and podcasts. So much stuff. You can use all of that to practice your listening skills, so make sure to use all of it. You can find things that are specific to your work, to your studies, to your hobbies, to your life. Go crazy. 8. The next tip is to watch the gestures of the speaker while you're listening. Watch the gestures of the speaker while you're listening. So, gestures means the body motion, the body movements, the body language of a person. So depending on the country and culture and speaking style of a person, they might have different body language. They might move their hands more or less. Gestures can give you more information, can give you hints about what you should be taking away, or the information you should be gathering from that topic of conversation. You can also look at someone's face to understand this. So, when you're watching a video like this, for example, you can look at how I move my hands and how I move my body, the ways that I move my face around when I'm talking. You can use all of these as hints to help your listening skills. 9. Okay, the next tip is to focus on the speaker and avoid any internal or external distractions. Focus on the speaker, avoid any internal or external distractions. What does this mean? So this means when you are listening to something, be active. So don't let something inside you, meaning don't let like thinking about your work or your studies or some personal drama distract you, and don't be distracted by the TV or by music or by your pets or whatever. Try to focus your attention on the speaker. So that means be an active listener. Don't just let it play in the background while you do something else. Make sure that you focus your energy on listening. The next tip is to attempt to find a listening topic in which you are genuinely interested. Attempt to find a listening TOEIC in which you are genuinely interested. So this means if you aren't interested by the thing that you're using for your listening practice, go find something else. You don't have to stick with the exact same materials forever. If you want to learn more from a different person or from a different kind of listening medium, like that means if you've been using music, but you want to use videos or you want to use podcasts, go for it. Expand. It will only help you to build your vocabulary. 11. The next tip is to listen to a native speaker and try to imitate their intonation and pronunciation. Listen to a native speaker and try to imitate their intonation and pronunciation. So again, this is a speaking-related tip and a listening-related tip. So when you listen to a native speaker and try to imitate them, you also have to listen very closely to the ways that they sound. So, do they go up or down when they make a certain sound or when they make a certain word? How do they pronounce the letters? How do they connect various sounds in their speech? We need to listen carefully to all of these things in order to make the same sounds yourself. So this can be a great way to work on improving your listening and your speaking skills at the same time. Pretty cool. The next tip is to listen to music in your target language and pick out familiar words and phrases. Listen to music in your target language and pick out familiar words and phrases. So this is a really fun way to build your listening skills. As you listen to a song, you can note the keywords. or maybe the key phrases, or even new phrases. Another good thing that you can do is look up the lyrics. So that means the words in the song. You can look up the lyrics to your favorite song or to a song you're listening and try to read along as you listen. This can really help you to catch all of the information. If there are words that you're not familiar with, you can look them up from there and then listen again a few days later and see how much you can understand. So, music can be a great way for you to build new vocabulary and to improve your listening skills. 13. The next tip is to listen to an audio dialogue without reading the text and write down what you hear. Listen to an audio dialogue without reading the text and write down what you hear. Okay. So, this one is a really challenging one, for sure. So if you've listened to an audio lesson like one of our audio lessons, you can try listening to it without the text and try to write everything down line by line. This is a super challenging but a really great way to find gaps in your vocabulary. So, if you listen to the audio dialogue and you realized, "Oh, I don't know that word," that's a really good sign that you need to study that word. This is a really good tip. It takes some time, for sure, but it can really help you pinpoint exactly what you need to focus on. 14. The next tip is to listen to a dialogue and try to correctly write down words you don't recognize. Then compare your spelling to the correct spelling. So once more, listen to a dialogue and try to correctly write down words you don't recognize. Then compare your spelling to the correct spelling. Okay. So, this is an extra level of challenge. When you listen to a dialogue for the first time, instead of just identifying words you don't know and thinking, "Oh, I should check the script or I should check the text," try anyway to write down that word that you don't know. So listen to the word a few times and make a guess, and then go and check the script, or go and check the text after that. So even if it's not correct, you're at least trying to understand that sound and trying to write the sound based on your knowledge. So this is another level of challenge that you can use to improve your writing skills and to improve your listening skills. The next tip is to listen to a news report or a podcast in your target language, in English, and then try to identify the topic of the report before reading about it. So again, listen to a news report or a podcast in English, then try to identify the topic of the report before reading about it. So, what does this mean? Okay. So, for example, if you follow a news source, an English-speaking news source, like a newspaper, an online newspaper, or maybe a magazine, something like that, and they have audio files of their news available, go subscribe to that. So subscribe to like the New York Times or whatever news outlet is interesting to you. and listen to their podcast files or listen to their audio files, but don't look at the information about the topic. Just press play on like the first list that you see. Just press play on an audio file at random and try to guess what the main points are. Try to guess what the topic is. Then you can go and read about that topic on that company's website and see if you got the key points correct. So this can be a really challenging